left off at dinner, he was saved from needing to respond by the appearance of goblins bearing dinner. They trooped proudly out, bearing their covered platters. The one who set his dish in front of him wore brilliant yellow socks pulled up over his knobby knees. The princess's server appeared to have fashioned a hat featuring an entire bird's nest, including a dead bird stitched carefully into place. The princess kept her face still, but her eyes slid to the bird flopping around. The goblin whipped off the lid with a flourish. Instead of the usual steak, Gav found a meat pie. It was carefully made, and the rim crimped nicely all the way around. He took a sniff. A rich aroma of chicken and herbs wafted up. His mouth watered. Something other than the endless parade of beef. Just as well, they couldn't possibly afford to keep slaughtering cows at that rate. He picked up the fork and broke the pasty into the pastry crust. His fork hit something hard. He kept from groaning. He should have known better. He should never have asked Orla to stray from her strengths. For all that the crust looked nicely browned, the vegetables inside were clearly raw. Still, a carrot could be eaten, crunchy or not, and it was still a change of pace. He stabbed harder and snared whatever it was hidden in the gravy, lifting it free. It stared back at him. Across the table, Alicia gave a little cry as she made her own discovery. She dropped her fork, and the tiny skull bounced its way across the table, landing with its beak facing Gav. "Kindly ask Orla to come up," he said with a calm he did not feel. While they waited, he poked at the crust. Alicia sat rigid in her chair, hands folded neatly in her lap. Was it so much worse than chicken stock, really? Perhaps the crust was edible. He took a tiny nibble. It wasn't terrible, actually. Not exactly flaky, but vaguely acceptable journeyman effort. The gravy beneath did have a nice flavor. The pie's contents, though, were somewhat less appealing. Orla came up, hands wringing her apron. The distortion did the kitten no favors. "Orla," Gav said as patiently as he could, given that his day had already started including a supercilious courtier and flailing Given that his day had already included supercilious courtiers and flailing tentacles. "Could you please explain what it is we have here?" "Lark's tongue pie," she mumbled, looking at her feet. Alicia turned her horrified stare on the poor goblin. Gav wanted to explain that it was her first time and to give the poor thing credit, but it didn't seem likely to help either the princess nor Orla's pride. "I think it is customary to remove the tongues and not include the skulls," he said as gently as he could. "Orla knows," Orla said, looking up with desperate eyes. "But boys not find enough larks to fill a whole pie. So many larks, and good eating on larks' heads." "I suppose there is, but it makes a rather messy pie," he said. "Perhaps next time we can just make the stock out of the carcasses instead of include all the meat from the larks. We can just make the stock out of the carcasses and include all the meat from the larks and leave the bones out of the pie entirely." She nodded frantically. He had a thought which came with its own sinking sensation. "Were there other courses?" She nodded again, even more frantically. His stomach growled sadly. "And what is the next course?" "Nettle salad. Has flowers." Nettles. Interesting facts about nettles flashed through his brain. So very helpful his memory was. "I don't suppose you blanched the nettles to remove the stingers?" Orla's face froze. That would be a no, clearly. "And anything else?" "Mushroom skewers?" she said. Her face continued to fall. "Let's try those," he answered, "and maybe some bread. Do we have any bread?" She nodded, backing out of the room. He gave up at that point and rested his forehead in his hands. If you were trying to poison me, you would have had more of the pie, the princess said slowly. She was trying to impress you, he said with a groan. If you could try to hide a bit of the disdain, I would very much appreciate it. She's clearly mortified enough as it is. The princess was silent for a moment. Gav closed his eyes, resting. It was easier not to think. You're not quite what I expected, she said at last. Is anyone... I've got to log back in. My computer's finally done restarting.